On Christmas Eve, I was standing in my mother's kitchen wearing an apron, my hands covered in flour and smelling of garlic and onions. In the living room, 25 relatives were laughing and talking like it was a crowded fair. My mother walked in, glanced at the still empty stove and smirked. "It's only 25 people. Why haven't you started cooking yet?" I didn't argue. I didn't cry. And I wasn't stupid enough to brag that I was running a multi-million-dollar company because she didn't know. And even if she did, she'd only use it to tear me down. I simply smiled, untied my apron, and hung it back neatly. Then I took out my phone and booked a one-way ticket to Miami. I left behind the empty kitchen and the Christmas dinner they assumed I would cook, but never would again. My name is Lily Septon. I'm 37 years old. And the story you're about to hear isn't some sentimental family is everything tale. This is the story of how I cut myself out of the role of the family servant that my relatives forced me to play for 15 years. If you've ever been treated like the help in your own family, the one who does the most and is appreciated the least, you'll understand every word I'm saying. And if you haven't experienced it, stay until the end. You'll see that sometimes the people who pull us down aren't strangers. They're family. Before we move on, do one simple thing. Subscribe to this channel so I can keep sharing stories that wake people up. And leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. I want to know who relates and who might need that final push to break free. Now let's get into it. In 2009, I was 22. I had just graduated with a degree in communications and stepped into the real world right as the economy collapsed. I sent out resumes like I was throwing them into a black hole. I had no choice but to move back into my childhood bedroom in Denver and relive the feeling of being the disappointing child in the eyes of the adults around me. The house smelled like pine and cinnamon. My mom had decorated it like she was preparing for a magazine shoot. That night we were hosting 15 guests, relatives, extended family, even a few of my dad's business associates. And right as I was sitting there finishing up a job application, my mom walked in and delivered a sentence like an order. "Lily, you're handling dinner. No question. No discussion. Just a direct assignment." I barely had time to look up and explain that I needed to finish my application when she cut me off immediately. "Housework comes first. Family comes first." And Sarah, my 8-year-old sister, was stretched out on the couch scrolling through her phone. She was excused because she was busy studying. That was the moment I understood something clearly. In this house, some people were prioritized, and some people were born to serve. Red Flag Hashone didn't arrive with fireworks or drama. It came quietly, like this had always been the rule. Sarah was given special treatment. I was given an unspoken contract. Mom said Sarah was busy with exams, busy with school, busy with her future, so she shouldn't have to lift a finger in the kitchen. And me, I was busy too. Busy applying for jobs, busy trying to build a life, busy trying not to drown right after graduation. But in my mother's eyes, my kind of busy didn't count. When I tried to say I still have job applications to finish, she cut me off immediately. "Paperwork can wait. This is family." It sounded moral, noble even. But in reality, it was a whip cracking across the back of the most obedient child in the room. So, I went into the kitchen. Not because I wanted to, but because I had been trained to believe that in this house the well-behaved one works. Red Flag #2 showed up as the guests began arriving. My father stood in the living room, a glass of wine in his hand, laughing like a man in full command of his kingdom. He brought Sarah over to meet one of his business partners. "This is Sarah, my youngest daughter. She's studying marketing. She'll take over the company one day." They shook her hand, complimented her, congratulated her. All eyes on her, the shining star of the family. And me, I walked past them carrying a tray of hot dishes, butter and spices rising in the air. My father glanced at me once, then turned away. No introduction. No, "This is Lily." Not even a sentence of acknowledgement. I wasn't a daughter in that moment. I was a shadow. Or more accurately, I was the catering staff in my own home. Then someone complimented the food. My mother gave a thin smile and said, "Oh, Lily made it. She's free anyway, still doesn't have a job." One sentence. A stamp across my forehead, no value beyond the kitchen. If you've ever been made invisible by your own family like that, comment one. I want to know if you're living that reality too. After Christmas 2009, it didn't stop. It repeated. over and over, like a dirty script that never changed. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, birthdays, my parents' anniversary. Anytime we had guests, I was automatically pushed into the kitchen. No discussion, no agreement. One look from my mother was enough. Lily handles it. I cooked. I set the table. I ran out to buy whatever was missing. I cleaned. I washed dishes until midnight. I was the one making sure the party ran smoothly while everyone else sat outside laughing as if dinner had materialized out of thin air. And Sarah was always in the living room, sitting in the best spot, saying the right lines, getting praised at the perfect moment. She was the face of the family. I was backstage. And backstage people don't get thanked. They get taken for granted. Year after year, they trained me into something very dangerous. A person who is exceptionally good at enduring. But endure long enough and it stops being kindness. It becomes self-destruction. In 2012, I started my own event planning company. I named it Stellar Events. I was good at coordination, good at managing details, good at handling crises. Of course I was. I'd been trained in my mother's kitchen for years. I once tried telling my mom I work in event planning now. She barely reacted. Just a dismissive hum. That's nice. On your way out, can you pick up my dry cleaning? That was it. So I stopped talking, stopped explaining, stopped trying to be understood. I poured everything into my work instead. 2014. I landed my first major client. $8,000 for a launch party. 2018. I had an office. A team. 2022. We were working with major corporations. 2024. The company had 23 employees. Revenue, $4.2 million. But every time I went home, I dressed simply. Because here's a bitter truth, when someone doesn't want to see you grow, you could tattoo your achievements on your forehead and they'd still find a way to belittle you. Thanksgiving, November 2024. I had just closed a $600,000 deal with a hotel chain. I walked into the house exhausted but proud, the kind of tired that comes from leveling up. And my mother handed me an apron. Not a single word of congratulations. Not a "how's work going?" Just a sentence, cold as a blade. The turkey needs to be basted every 30 minutes. I made a schedule. Do you understand that 23 employees report to me? I negotiate with CEOs. I sign six-figure contracts like it's routine. And yet the moment I step into that house, I'm reduced to the girl whose main responsibility is basting a turkey and washing dishes. I still took the apron. I still brushed butter over the turkey. I still carried plates out like a machine. But while my hands were submerged in soapy water, I said one sentence to myself: enough. This will be the last holiday season I play housemaid for them. No arguing. No proving. Just a decision: leave. On the morning of the 22nd of December 2024, I was sitting in the Stellar Events office, watching snow fall outside the glass windows, when Marcus, our CFO, the one who's been with me since it was just me and a laptop, walked in and slid his tablet across my desk. "Lily, you need to see this." On the screen was an email from Victoria Caldwell, CEO of Meridian Holdings, a billion-dollar real estate and hospitality corporation. Subject line: Partnership Proposal, Exclusive Event Services, 2025. I finished reading the email and my heart started pounding. Meridian wanted to sign an exclusive year-long event contract. Estimated value $2.1 million. But life never hands you something for free. Victoria wanted to meet in person before signing. The only available slot: 11:00 a.m., December 24th, in Miami. If the contract wasn't signed in time, they would move forward with our competitor, Lux Affairs. I looked at Marcus and said just one sentence: book the flight. I'm going to Miami. The moment that was settled, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother: call me. Important. I knew exactly what important meant. Not illness. Not emergency. It meant she needed me to serve. I called back. She didn't waste a second. The plans changed. Sarah invited friends. Total of 25 people. Come home early tomorrow. Cook, decorate, handle everything. Sarah's busy. I replied calmly. I have a business trip. I'm flying to Miami tomorrow night. The meeting can't be moved. She let out a short, mocking laugh. Miami. For what? Those little party gigs of yours can wait. This is family. And then she delivered the familiar line, "You're selfish. Sarah sacrifices for this family." This time I didn't swallow it. I answered short and clear, "No, I'm not coming home. I'm not cooking for 25 people. I'm going to Miami." If you've ever had the word family used as a leash to trap you into unpaid labor, comment 1. On the night of December 23rd, I returned to my apartment, a 2-bedroom loft with exposed brick walls and a mountain view. My family had never set foot there, not because they couldn't, because they had never bothered to ask. I didn't pack emotions. I packed a plan. Business suits, laptop, contracts, presentation materials. Everything fit neatly into one carry-on. And I added one more thing: the October issue of Forbes opened to the page with my face on it. Not to show off, but to remind myself I'm not crazy. I'm not exaggerating. I built something real. At exactly 8:45 p.m., the plane left Denver. Down there, they were probably sitting in the living room waiting for me to come back and take my place in the kitchen. But not this time. I opened the Meridian contract and reviewed every clause, preparing for every possible challenge. That night, I wasn't the obedient daughter. I was the woman about to sign the deal that would change her company. On the morning of December 24th, just as I adjusted my collar and prepared to walk into the biggest meeting of my life, my phone vibrated. Sarah. I declined the call. She left a voicemail. Normally I would have ignored it, but for some reason that morning I listened. And one sentence in that voicemail made my blood run cold. "Victoria Caldwell is coming to our house for Christmas dinner tonight. And now we have nothing to serve." I stared at my screen like I'd just been slapped. Victoria Caldwell, the CEO of Meridian Holdings. The woman I was about to meet to sign a $2.1 million contract, was a guest at my parents' house. My mind started racing. Did Victoria know my father? Was this some networking move for his company? Did Sarah somehow arrange this? And most importantly, did she know I was their daughter? The elevator dinged. The doors slid open. An assistant stepped forward with a polite smile. "Miss Septon, Miss Caldwell is waiting." I stepped out, carrying a secret, powerful enough to blow up Christmas dinner. I walked into the boardroom on the 40th floor. Floor-to-ceiling glass overlooked Biscayne Bay. The contract lay neatly arranged on the table. NDA notarized documents, every page perfectly prepared. It looked less like paperwork and more like a beautifully wrapped trap. Victoria Caldwell stood and shook my hand. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. "Miss Septon, a pleasure to meet you. Shall we begin?" I nodded, opened my folder, and answered every single question she asked. Team, capability, operational workflow, contingency plans, vendor standards. I didn't shake. I've taken 12 years of hits in the marketplace to earn this composure. Then Victoria said something casually, light as air, heavy as a hammer. "I'm flying back to Denver this afternoon. I'm having Christmas dinner tonight with the Septon family. Do you know them?" My heart skipped. This was the moment. I could have revealed everything, but I didn't. I kept my expression neutral and replied with a single sentence, "The name sounds familiar. It's fairly common." And then I continued signing because money doesn't wait for emotions. Once the contract was signed, I didn't chase drama. I didn't call home to explain. I didn't turn myself into a last-minute rescue plan like I had every year before. I held the signed folder and walked out of the Meridian building feeling something unfamiliar. Light. That afternoon, I flew back to Denver. The plane landed right around the time Christmas dinner at my parents' house was supposed to begin. If this had been the Lily of 10 years ago, I would have rushed straight there to clean up the mess, to apologize, to carry the weight so they wouldn't lose face. But not this time. I called an Uber to my apartment, ordered Thai takeout, turned off my phone, closed the curtains. No one barking orders, no smell of grease and panic, no voice shouting, "Why isn't this done yet?" For the first time in 15 years, my Christmas Eve was quiet and kind. And I realized something simple: when you step out of the servant role, they're forced to learn how to function like adults. Around 5:30 p.m., my mother walked into the kitchen in her usual queen of the evening mindset, only to find one thing: nothing. No pots, no pans, no smell of food, no trays of appetizers. The kitchen was as cold as a freezer. She called for my father. He rushed in his face, draining of color. "Where's Lily? Where's the food?" Sarah came downstairs in a red dress, still unaware of what was happening until my mother snapped. "Your sister left. There's no dinner," and just like that, chaos broke loose. They called caterers fully booked, closed, no availability. They called restaurants completely reserved, polite refusals. They rushed to the supermarket, prepared food sections, wiped clean. By the time guests started arriving, the dining table held only the bare minimum of embarrassment. Store-bought rotisserie chicken, bagged salad, Costco cheese, bread still sitting in its plastic packaging. The house looked beautiful. But the table told the truth. They were used to eating off my sweat. If you've ever been the one holding your family together and the moment you step back, everything collapses, comment one. In the middle of that strained, overly cheerful living room, Grace Thompson was scrolling through her phone when she suddenly froze. "Oh my God! Richard, Margaret, come look at this!" She held up her screen. A LinkedIn post from just a few hours earlier. A photo of Victoria Caldwell shaking hands with Lily. Captioned, "Thrilled to announce our partnership with Stellar Events and the brilliant Lily Septon." Hashtags, corporate tags, a mention of Forbes. The air in the room turned solid. Christmas music was still playing. Wine glasses still clinked. But the circle forming around Grace went completely silent. Grace slowly looked up and asked, her voice landing like a hammer. "Lily Septon, isn't that your daughter?" My mother froze. Her face went pale. My father narrowed his eyes at the screen, as if he could will it into being a mistake. Sarah started stammering. And right then, almost like fate had impeccable timing, Victoria Caldwell stepped closer, glanced at the LinkedIn post, then looked directly at them. "Wait! Lily Septon is your daughter." There it was. The secret they had dismissed for 15 years detonated in the middle of their Christmas party. My mother stuttered. Why didn't she tell us?" It sounded like confusion. Almost hurt, but it was the same old reflex, shift the blame. As if the problem wasn't that they never asked, but that I never volunteered. And Victoria Caldwell, an outsider who saw through it in 3 seconds, replied with one quiet sentence that cut deeper than any accusation. "Perhaps you never asked." The room went silent. Not the polite kind of silence, the suffocating kind. No Christmas music could soften it. Because that sentence wasn't about one ruined dinner. It exposed 15 years. They only asked when they needed errands run. They only called when they needed service. How Lily was living. What Lily was building. How capable she had become. That was never important. Whispers started spreading across the room. Someone pulled up Forbes on their phone. Someone else read out loud the revenue numbers, the team size, the contract value. And in that moment, I knew something with absolute clarity. My silence for 12 years wasn't weakness. It was a mirror. And tonight they were being forced to look straight into it. After Victoria's line, "Perhaps you never asked," the living room had already begun to fracture. But she wasn't finished. She slowly scanned the room the way a CEO evaluates a broken system. Calm, analytical, direct. Then she spoke. No raised voice, but enough weight to make people swallow hard. She said Lily was one of the most impressive operators she had ever met. She had personally sat across from her that morning, evaluated her capabilities, and signed a $2.1 million contract. And Lily had never once mentioned being part of the Septon family. That part hurt the most. Because it made one thing painfully clear: Lily didn't claim them. She didn't use their name, didn't leverage their connections, didn't even bring them up. She built everything without them, and chose not to stand beside them when it mattered. Grace wasn't the only one. A few other guests began adding fuel to the fire. Now that I think about it, Lily was always in the kitchen. You never really talked about her. When you look back, you treated her like staff. Victoria gently set her wine glass down. Her smile was polite, her eyes weren't. I can understand why Lily wouldn't want to be associated with this family. That was it. She said goodbye, turned, and walked out. No damage control. No polite rescue. No saving face. The front door closed, and what remained in that beautifully decorated house was one thing: the embarrassment they had built with their own hands. That night, when I finally turned my phone back on, the notifications flooded in. But not a single message said, "Congratulations, we're proud of you. You did amazing." Instead, I got this: "Mom, call me now. Victoria knows everything." "Mom, how dare you humiliate this family in front of everyone, Sarah? You made us look like idiots." "Sarah, Mom is devastated." "Are you happy now, Dad?" This shouldn't have happened like this. Not one of them asked how the meeting went. Not one of them acknowledged the deal. To them, the tragedy wasn't that they had ignored me for 15 years. The tragedy was that their illusion collapsed in public. Do you see it? They treated my success like a weapon aimed at them, not like something to celebrate. They didn't ask how the contract went. Didn't ask if I was exhausted. Didn't ask if I was okay. They just wanted me to step back into a familiar role, take the blame, absorb the impact, protect their image. And in that moment, I understood something clearly. If I caved and apologized, I would be tying that apron back around my own neck. So I didn't. I didn't call to argue. Arguing with people who always need to win is a waste of oxygen. Instead, I opened my laptop and drafted an email the same way I handle a difficult client. Short, clear, conditional. I sent it to my father, my mother, and Sarah. The message in essence said I wasn't there because I was signing a $2.1 million contract with Meridian Holdings. For 15 years, I cooked and cleaned every holiday while my career was dismissed as a hobby. When I mentioned an important meeting, Mom laughed at it. When I set a boundary, I was called selfish. And I made my conditions clear. From now on, I am no longer the family's unpaid head chef. When I attend gatherings, I come as a guest, not staff. My career will be respected. No belittling, no sarcasm. If that's not possible, then we simply won't meet. No yelling, no drama. Just one unspoken message: if you can't respect me, you don't get access to me. After December 26th, it stopped being a family argument. It became public. Victoria's LinkedIn post about the Stellar Events partnership started circulating widely. Industry professionals jumped in with congratulations, collaboration requests, meeting invitations. I had stayed quiet for years, and suddenly I was in the spotlight. Then Grace Thompson added fuel to it. She posted something vague on Facebook along the lines of, "Never underestimate someone in your own family." Everyone in my parents' social circle knew exactly who she meant. And then, the interrogation calls began. "I heard your daughter was featured in Forbes. How come you never mentioned Lily?" Wait. Lily runs a company that big. For the first time in their lives, they weren't being admired. They were being questioned. My mother had built her identity around being the model mother. So every question people asked was like a needle pressing into that mask. My father was hit differently. Business partners began saying it outright. "Set up a meeting for me with Lily. I'd like to explore collaboration." That was when it finally sank in for him. The daughter he had treated like kitchen staff was the one people were most eager to do business with. That's the thing about stepping out of the role of team carrier. Once you withdraw, reality reveals itself. On December 29th, an express envelope arrived at my apartment. Not an email, not a text, a handwritten letter. From my father. I almost tossed it aside. For 15 years, words in that house had been cheap, but I opened it. In the letter, he wrote that it had taken him 4 days to understand why he had been blind. I had built a real company, one whose revenue now exceeded his company's profit, and he hadn't known because he had never asked. He admitted something I had felt my entire life. He looked at Sarah with expectation, believing she would succeed. He looked at me with assumption, believing I wouldn't. And then he wrote a sentence I had never once heard from anyone in my family: "I'm proud of you." I read the letter 3 times. Then I placed it next to my coffee machine. I wasn't ready to forgive. One letter doesn't erase 15 years of being diminished. But at least for the first time, someone in that house admitted the truth. It wasn't that I never told them, it was that they never cared to know. On New Year's Eve, just before midnight, I picked up my phone and called my father. He answered immediately. His voice sounded like someone holding their breath, waiting for a verdict. I didn't circle around the point. "I'm willing to try rebuilding this relationship, but it will never go back to how it was. I attend family gatherings as a guest, not kitchen staff. There will be no more belittling my work, no sarcasm, no dismissing me, no treating me like I'm invisible. If I show up, it's because I choose to, not because I'm pressured." Silence on the other end. Not defensive, not angry, just quiet. My father was quiet for a moment then. He said, "I understand." And I agree. He added that my mother was still in shock, still not ready to admit she was wrong. I stopped him there. I already gave Mom 15 years. At the end of the call, I set one small but foundational step. I'll come to dinner next Sunday, but I'm not cooking. I'll order Italian. I'm coming to talk, not to serve. That's the thing about boundaries. You don't have to scream them. You just state them clearly and follow through. I used to think revenge meant making them regret how they treated me. But revenge still means orbiting around them. What I did wasn't revenge. It was self-respect. I don't need my family's recognition to be successful. I don't need my mother's praise, my father's pride, or Sarah's admiration. I only need one thing: I no longer shrink myself. From that day forward, I wrote my rules the way I draft contracts. I attend gatherings as a guest, not a servant. I don't accept jokes that are actually insults. I don't apologize for prioritizing my career. Whoever respects me, I stay. Whoever manipulates me, I leave. And if you're being belittled, used, constantly expected to sacrifice, hear this clearly. You're not lacking family love. You're lacking the courage to set boundaries. Don't confuse softness with kindness. If you stay soft in the wrong place, people will step on you and call it normal. Choosing yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you responsible for your own life. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't building a career. It's standing up in the place where you were trained to shrink. If you've ever had to choose yourself over your family's expectations, share your story in the comments. Someone out there might need to read it and realize they're not alone.